Hi, Kelsey. Can you
Hi,
how are you?
I'm great. How are you? We've had a busy couple days here.
It has been nuts. It has been crazy today. So thank you for being able to talk with me for a little bit about Joe Burrow. So can you just give me a recap of where things started with the whole conversation about Joe's wrist?
So last night during the Bengals Ravens game, Joe Burrow hurt his wrist in the second quarter. And today we found out from Zach Taylor that it was a play that happened around the 5 minute mark where Joe Burrow was drove to the ground by Ravens defensive end Jadeveon Clowney after he got rid of the ball. And then the next play was the play that he threw the touchdown pass to Joe Mixon. And in that play, the camera zoomed in on him immediately throwing his hand down, wincing in pain, and then he was not able to go back into the game after that touchdown pass. He went to the locker room and didn't come out until after halftime, and Jake Browning took over as the starting quarterback. And Joe Burrow told us today that he had a feeling after the game that it was a serious injury. And today, Zach Taylor and Joe Burrow got the results back from his MRI, and he has a torn ligament in his right wrist, which is his throwing hand, and he's likely to get surgery and is going to miss the rest of the 2023 season.
So can you just tell me what was it like last night as you're seeing this unfold? You see him go into the blue tent, and I can't remember if it was right after that when Cam Taylor Britt got injured.
Yes.
Can you just tell me what that was like seeing these injuries unfold?
Well, I'll take you back even to the start of training camp where it has just been hit after hit for Joe Burrow. And you really got to feel for him because he is one of the hardest working athletes there is in terms of how serious he takes his off-season work to get himself in a position where he's ready to go. And he strained his calf on the second day of training camp, which forced him to miss 5 weeks. And then just as he was able to get his legs back under him, he re-aggravated the same calf against the Ravens in the final minutes of the game, which then put him back to where he was before, which was really struggling to put any weight and really be able to move on his right calf. So then he gets that healthy. It took about 4 to 5 weeks for you to really see him look healthy and look like his old self. And just as it seemed like the Bengals were hitting their stride, then this injury now happens to Burrow. So it was almost like this season has just been snake bitten to some degree in terms of Joe Burrow's availability. It just seems like every time he gets over one hump, there's another one waiting for him. And that's unfortunate because the Bengals went into the game yesterday really hoping to win, and it looked like before he got hurt that they might be able to win that game in Baltimore, and that would have put them right back in the playoff mix. So it's just been a long couple of months here for Joe Burrow and really anyone that's covered him because it's just been a lot of injury talk. And then, of course, he signed that big contract. So it's just been a lot going on with Joe Burrow. But yeah, this is the latest. And yeah, it's a big time letdown for the Bengals who were, hopeful to make a Super Bowl run this year.
So last night, can you talk about? I kept seeing this stuff on social media about when Joe Burrow arrived to the stadium in Baltimore, and it looked like a brace. You couldn't really see it that well. Can you talk about how he clarified that today in the press conference?
Yeah, I'm glad that you asked that because that's an important topic here and something that a lot of people were wondering about. So, this all started going back to social media and a picture that the Cincinnati Bengals team posted. They usually take these pictures every away game of the players getting off the plane to show off their outfits. It's like personality pictures. And they took a picture of Burrow getting off the plane and he had a black brace on his right wrist, and they posted it and they decided to delete it. I think it was like 30 seconds after they posted it. Well, that signaled to a lot of people that maybe there was something going on that the Bengals realized they didn't want out there for people to see. Well, in today's day and age, people will screenshot anything, and someone screenshotted it, which then started the speculation. And then there were a bunch of TV reporters, local Cincinnati TV reporters, that were waiting for the Bengals at the team hotel where they were getting off the buses, and they zoomed in on Burrow getting off the bus with the brace on his hand. And there were a couple of people that reported that they were told it was an iPad drawing glove, and he was holding his iPad. And so I think a lot of people thought that maybe it was an overreaction. Well, it turns out it wasn't. Burrow clarified it today and said that it has nothing to do with the injury he has now. And basically, he put the compression sleeve on before flying, which isn't uncommon for athletes to avoid swelling up. And, he said at this point in the season, they're sore, and sore doesn't necessarily mean injured. So the reason it was a topic of conversation, though, is because the NFL has a very strict injury report policy where teams have to list if a player is dealing with any sort of injury for a number of reasons, and the fines are pretty hefty if you break the policy. So it came out today that the NFL is investigating the Bengals in this situation to make sure that they weren't hiding Burrow's injury. But it doesn't sound like that's the case. It would have been highly unlikely that the Bengals would put themselves in that situation because the Steelers were fined, $75,000 in 2019 for doing that with Ben Roethlisberger. So it didn't seem like the Bengals would put themselves in a position, but it was good that Joe Burrow was able to speak for himself and clarify today.
So you don't think that the NFL will investigate this, or you think with the press conference today, you think it kind of put things at ease, or what are your thoughts on that?
I think they'll still investigate it. I'm sure they probably have already started looking into it. Adam Schefter reported that they are planning to investigate the Bengals. So we'll see what comes out of it, but you take Burrow and the Bengals at their word until they prove otherwise. And right now, Burrow said it had nothing to do with his injury. So that's what you have to go off of at this point. But yeah, the NFL will definitely look into it, because on the off chance that, someone's not telling the truth, like, the NFL takes it really seriously because they're serious about the integrity of the game.
Okay. I have one more question, and I'm kind of getting this. I hate to keep talking about social media, but it's a huge thing, right?
Especially 2023, Kara.
Yeah, and especially when you talk about sports. I kept seeing criticism last night about the Bengals not having, I guess, what people would quote, a really good backup quarterback. What are your thoughts about that? And then, like, during the preseason, they didn't recruit anybody for that position.
Mm-hmm.
Do you feel confident with the two that we had, or do you think that they should have went another way as far as like recruiting another backup quarterback?
Well, there's some backstory here. I don't think Jake Browning's good enough to get this team to get to the playoffs, but it's really hard to have a quality backup, because if teams thought they were good enough, they'd probably try and make him their starter. But that's not to say that the Bengals shouldn't have tried harder for a better option than Jake Browning. And really the only issue with Jake Browning is he's so inexperienced, and you would at least hope to have some sort of maybe former starter who's now a backup, someone with experience starting games, as opposed to Jake Browning having to go in and see his first game time action in the NFL in a hostile environment on the road on Thursday Night Football. But he did it, and he handled it. He was okay, nothing to write home about, completed about half of his passes. But the story is the Bengals thought that Trevor Siemian was going to be their backup quarterback. And he is someone that I'm talking about that's a veteran who has starting experience in the NFL. But he didn't play well enough in training camp, and Jake Browning beat him out of his spot. So at that point, you're a little bit behind the eight ball in terms of all the other teams maybe would have taken the Bengals' third, fourth, and fifth options earlier on in the offseason, and they weren't, envisioning that Trevor Siemian wasn't going to play well in training camp and that Jake Browning was going to be their backup. They envisioned Jake Browning to be their number 3 quarterback on the practice squad. So that's kind of the backstory of what happened at the backup quarterback spot. The Bengals the last couple of years had Brandon Allen, someone they were very comfortable with, and he left to go sign with the 49ers. He took more money than the Bengals offered him, so that's where a lot of people say the Bengals should have spent more money trying to sign him to make sure they had a better backup in the case that Joe Burrow got hurt. But it didn't shake out that way, and the Bengals are stuck with Jake Browning, and That's who I envision starting, these final 7 games for the Bengals, because right now, yes, they have AJ McCarron on the practice squad, but there's not, some really talented quarterbacks just out on the street right now. So you'd probably rather have someone who knows your system, who's been in Cincinnati for the last couple of years with Zach Taylor. So that's where they're at with the backup quarterback spot.
Okay. All right. Thanks for clarifying that.
Yeah, there's a lot there.
Do you have any other more thoughts about today, about maybe what Joe Burrow said or Zach Taylor? I found them very optimistic.
Yeah.
I don't know. I mean, I don't know how. Of course, I'm not an athlete, and I haven't had that kind of pressure on me. But I thought that he was just very optimistic, and it was like, I can't remember the one quote, but it's like, you get in these situations, you assess it, and you basically you move on. I think it's kind of close to what he was saying.
Yeah, I think that having been around Joe Burrow now for a couple of years, like his ability to just stay even keeled through a lot of adversity is really impressive for someone who's only 26 years old. And I think through all that he's been through so far in his football career, whether it be him not being able to start in Ohio State and having to transfer to LSU, and to then have people say, is he capable of being a top draft pick? And then he gets picked number 1 overall, and he's just been ascending ever since. And then he tears his ACL his first year, and then he recovers from that and is even better. So I think he's just kind of mastered how to just deal with what comes in this football game, and he's not really an emotional guy, and I think that works into his favor. But I agree with you. I thought Zach Taylor, and I think that's why like people are so high on Zach Taylor as a coach from a player's perspective, because there's so many ebbs and flows of the NFL season, and he just always remains level-headed. And when the rest of the world, it feels like the sky's falling for the Cincinnati Bengals fans, you need your head coach to be able to instill confidence in the team. And I think the fact that Burrow, not that I ever imagined him not wanting to be around the team, I think he understands his importance on the team. So that's why he wants to be around. And he's likely going to get surgery. So we'll see where that surgery is and how long he's away from the team. But yeah, I would say I was kind of shocked at how optimistic both Zach Taylor and Joe Burrow were, just because Joe's such a competitor. And, he said, he's like, I haven't had that woe is me feeling. And I think it's just really commendable.
All right. Well, thank you. Is there anything else you can think of about the past? What?
No,
not even 24 hours. It hasn't been 24 hours yet, has it? No.
I don't even know. But I will say, no, I don't have any more thoughts. I'm sure I'll have plenty next week when the Bengals are off this weekend. I'm gonna give them a chance to regroup and get their plan together with Jake Browning. But we have plenty of coverage on Cincinnati.com, from photos to videos to analysis, columns, everything you want to know. So if you're as invested in Bengals and Joe Burrow as we all have been, we're definitely the place you want to go get your coverage from.
I agree. Thank you so much, Kelsey.
Thanks, Kara.